Hey everyone, Tankenstein here. In this video, I'll be reviewing the MiG-21S, a Russian rank 6 premium fighter that currently costs 8,910 Golden Eagles and currently sits at 9.7 BR in RB and 9.0 BR in AB. I'll be going over a ton in this video, including its stats, how it plays, its strengths and weaknesses. I'll grade it in several different important categories and then end it with my final recommendation and if I think that this plane is worth purchasing or not, specific to what type of player that I think would benefit from this plane most. With that said, let's get into the review. So to start, I'll place its stats over here on the left side of the screen. Its important stats to know are its top speed, rate of climb, and turning rate. It also carries a 23mm cannon with 200 rounds, along with secondary ordnance options including R3Ss, R3Rs, 250kg bombs, 500kg bombs, S5Ks, and S24 rockets. It also carries a ballistics computer for cannons and rockets, but lacks one for bombs. With that out of the way, let's get into how the MiG-21S plays. And well, it's pretty much the same as all other MiG-21s. It's extremely fast, has good acceleration at speed, great maneuverability, and quickly bleeds speed in high G turns. Interestingly, it only has R3 missiles, meaning that air-to-air kills will be fairly rare due to their mediocre tracking capabilities. The MiG-21 makes up for this, however, at least to a point by having the best engine of any MiG-21 that sits below 10.0 BR in RB, giving it much better acceleration and thus rate of climb than other sub 10.0 BR MiGs like the MiG-21 F-13 and MiG-21 PFM. This gives the MiG-21S a feel that is more similar to old style dogfighters that rely on being relatively fast, maneuverable, and rely on cannons more than anything else, as the MiG-21S has poor missiles but flight performance that fits closer to 10.3 BR or even 10.7 BR. In this regard, it's almost an anachronism that has a somewhat favorable BR depending on what you prefer. If you like speed and overall performance, this is a great BR for this plane. If you prefer good missiles or more advanced technology, you'll probably think that this plane should be at a lower BR. To this point, as this is almost a pure dogfighter, you'll want to climb, dive, and strike your opponents. You just need to make sure that you're handy with a cannon, as missiles again are by no means a guarantee with the MiG-21S. It also has no countermeasures and has a poor radar, which makes it difficult to face more advanced aircraft, but again, you can outpace almost every single plane that you'll be facing in flight, which is a defense in and of itself. An interesting point to note is that the poor radar on the MiG-21S makes it so that the R3Rs, of which are already fairly mediocre, are even tougher to use because it just does not track long range all too well. For close air support, it's pretty simple. Because the MiG-21S only has a ballistics computer insofar as secondary armament is concerned, for rockets, those immediately become the most effective armament against ground targets, specifically the S-24 rockets, as the MiG-21S can carry up to 4 of them, and they can destroy nearly any tank with ease. Unfortunately, it cannot carry guided anti-ground ordnance, so it's pretty much just going to be rockets or bust with this aircraft. Though you can of course use its effective 500kg bombs, though I would only suggest this if you're excellent with dropping bombs and are poor with using rockets, even when using a ballistics computer. In short, unless this is your only plane at top tier, I would generally recommend to avoid using this as a close air support plane, although it does get the job done in a pinch. And now let's get into its strengths and weaknesses, and as always, I'll get into its strengths first. So first and foremost, it is extremely fast, much like other MiG-21s. However, the MiG-21S is much faster than its similar BR cousins. Second, it has excellent maneuverability. Again, this is a typical trait of MiG-21s. Third, the MiG-21S does have radar, though it is again fairly mediocre. Fourth, it has a good cannon, though it does have somewhat limited total ammunition, but 200 rounds really isn't all too bad. Fifth, it has a total of up to 4 missiles, including R3Rs and R3Ss. Beyond this, it has a better engine at its BR than similar MiG-21s, meaning that it has much better acceleration and rate of climb again than other MiG-21s like the F-13 and the PFM. It also has a ballistics computer for both rockets and cannons, and finally, it has premium bonuses when it comes to RP and Silver Lions. And now let's go over the weaknesses, and first and foremost, it has no countermeasures. While this is definitely a problem, it'd be a much bigger problem if it was at even 10.0 BR or if it was slightly slower or less maneuverable. Second, while it does have R3R missiles, they are mediocre, and with poor radar, maneuverability, and general tracking all affecting it negatively. Third, R3S missiles are essentially the same, except that they have short range and typically have to track an enemy from the rear only, so they are not all aspect. For its fourth weakness, it has poor acceleration at low speeds. Even though the MiG-21S does have a much better engine compared to similar BR MiG-21 planes in game, it still suffers from major problems with its acceleration at low speeds, which is doubly a problem because all MiG-21s bleed excessive amounts of energy at high speed turns, meaning that you can find yourself in a dogfight going from 1,000 kilometers per hour to 350 or 400 kilometers per hour in no time, and once you hit that low speed, you will find it very difficult to outpace the enemy or even just simply get back up to any sort of reasonable dogfighting speed. Beyond this, the MiG-21S has mediocre fuel efficiency, which can be said about most planes of this generation, MiG-21 or otherwise. The MiG-21S also has no ballistics computer for bombs, which is somewhat remedied by having a ballistics computer for rockets. However, if you are a bomb preferring player, you will not really have that option, which makes it a little bit difficult for those people, at least in close air support. And finally, along the same vein, it has an extremely limited anti-ground ordnance loadout, both in terms of weight and capability. It does not have access to ATGMs. Now finally, what do I think about this plane? The MiG-21S is a good plane for those who rely more on speed and maneuverability over technology. The R3 missiles, regardless of the type, are mediocre, and while you can score kills with them, such kills will be relatively rare when compared to MiG-21s or even the Yak-38 that are both equipped with R-60s and or R-13 missiles. While I do not subscribe to the notion that there are outright bad vehicles in War Thunder, I sometimes struggle with the idea that a vehicle is poorly placed in terms of BR, or in the case of premium vehicles, that there aren't better vehicles to purchase for the same or similar price. In this case, the MiG-21S currently has a very high purchase price of 8,910 GE, of which is equal to the G91R4 and is just 180 GE less than the currently amazing Harrier GR1. The great benefit, however, is that the MiG-21S is rank 6, whereas the G91 is rank 5, even though it is a better close air support plane, meaning that you can research through rank 7 without penalty while using the MiG-21S. And now for its ratings, I give it an 8.5 out of 10 for dogfighting, if indeed you prefer cannons and speed and only care about missiles as a secondary weapon rather than a primary weapon, at least at this BR. I give it a 6.5 out of 10 for dogfighting, however, if you prefer missiles. Now for close air support, I give the MiG-21S a 4 out of 10. While it's not terrible, it really isn't great. The reason why it receives this score is because it simply has a limited loadout in terms of both variety of weaponry and total carrying capability. This is clearly a dogfighter and is not meant for close air support. For grinding, I give it a 6 out of 10 because while it does benefit from premium RP and SL bonuses, it primarily only dogfights and has mediocre missiles. This limits its score potential in any given match unless you're amazing with cannons or just have a great setup to fire your missiles accurately. Overall, I give the MiG-21S a 6.5 out of 10 as it functions best for only certain types of players, namely high-tier cannon preferring players that prefer air RB. So should you buy the MiG-21S? Yes and no. If you strongly prefer dogfighting over multi-role or ground attack, then it's actually a pretty good plane, especially if you're handy with a cannon. Currently, Russia has 3 premium tier 6 aircraft that you can choose from that cost roughly the same amount. You have the Yak-38, which is better as a multi-role aircraft, the Su-7 BMK, which is great at destroying bases and at performing close air support, and of course the MiG-21S, which is great at dogfighting but has limited, though effective, ground ordnance options. If you're looking at the other two, I do have reviews of those as well linked below. So if you're dead set on buying a Russian plane, those are pretty much going to be your options. You have a multi-role, a nearly pure ground attacker, and finally the nearly pure dogfighter in the MiG-21S. While the other two are better grinders by their very nature, the MiG-21S is a bit better of a dogfighter, especially if you're good with cannons. If you're looking for a high tier plane but don't care about the nation, you might want to consider the Harrier GR1, as that has far better missiles, better ground attack, and has better low-end acceleration. Either way, is the MiG-21S a bad plane? No, I don't think it is by any means, but I fear that its lack of good missiles combined with an ever-increasing population of higher tier premium planes will make this plane irrelevant in the future. In short, it's a great plane for people that yearn for how air battles used to take place in lower tiers, even if many of your enemies will be equipped with the missiles skills that you lack. Additionally, if you like Air AB, this is probably also pretty darn good. Now that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Please let me know what you guys think about this plane in the comments below. Please subscribe if you'd like more content, and indeed like if you enjoyed this video. But either way, thanks again, and I'll see you all on the other side. Take care, everyone.